I'm Scott Neeson from the Cambodian Children's Fund. I've been living in Cambodia now for 8 years. You may have picked that I'm actually not Cambodian. This is relevant for a couple of reasons. I started off in Phnom Penh back in 2004. I didn't have any non-profit experience. I had no experience in schooling, and I had very little experience in the region. The reason I started Cambodian Children's Fund was because of the environment I saw when I was there on vacation. It was the Stinging Che garbage dump just outside Phnom Penh. There were 1,500 children, around about 1,000 families living, surviving on a garbage dump. And it was probably the most, in fact it was the most appalling situation I had seen. It caused me to leave my job, which is quite a lucrative job in the US, because I felt I could make a difference, and I never for the life of me expected it to be so all-consuming. So we started in 2004, and I came with a very different perspective, not having come from education non-profit world. So the growth of the organisation was more organic, and it was more reactive to the needs of the people, which had both pluses and negatives. You'll see the slides here aren't exactly relevant, but just giving you an idea of the environment. The first thing was that taking some children off the garbage dump was relatively easy. If you took out 2 or 3 children, you could generally address the issues with the family, and it was a simple solution. Where, of course, I started to hit the roadblocks was when it came to doing this on a scale. When we wanted to get 60 or 70 children out of the garbage dump into school, we started to deal with some fairly difficult family issues, whether it was health, indebtedness, abandoned children. In some cases, we were dealing with some severe health issues, inability to work at all. There was a lot of child trafficking there. There was a lack of law, no fresh water, a shockingly high maternal death rate. So with each problem, we came up with a solution. We opened a healthcare clinic, a maternal care program, and each time we peeled away the onion, there'd be another layer of issues to deal with. This went from a very high rate of abuse, both physical, sexual abuse, engaging the local law enforcement people, dealing with some serious indebtedness where debts were running at 10%. You're dealing with a community that had no job skills. They had a high degree of dysfunction because of the recent history of Cambodia, the Pol Pot days, post-traumatic stress syndrome, the civil wars that followed through the 70s and 80s. So it was a community that I'd never dealt with. It was a very, very dysfunctional area. People carrying debts of $500 to $1,000, 10 to 15% interest per month. So over the years, we've built up a community centre, and the beauty of this is it's now a central hub for the area. In an area where there was once only 40% of children in school, and nearly 8% of mothers would die within a week of giving childbirth, we now have a true sense of community. That allows us not only to get more kids into school, but it provides a degree of hope, and it also provides a degree of community involvement. And with that comes issues of pride, hope, learning, community shame. Should you start to break out of certain environments, your child doesn't come to school on time. We've tied a lot of our programs. We've tied a lot of the programs into the child's attendance. So, for example, if your child has a perfect attendance rate, then your rice, 10 kilos of rice each month is at no charge. If you manage to get your child to school on a very regular basis, or there are serious issues hampering you from getting the child, you still get it at a subsidised rate. We have a maternal care clinic for all pregnant mothers who are living in dire situations. We've just had a 387th birth and no maternal deaths in the past 3 years. Each of the children here attend school on the promise that they're going to go to university. We see vocational training as very much as a last resort. It's taking the most impoverished, neglected children in this country and turn them into tomorrow's leaders. The fact that we do this on a community level has a number of advantages. The most important one for us is it allows for a degree of ongoing self-governance, an ongoing degree of self-esteem, and of course there's an exit plan because the students are turning into the teachers, the daycare and nursery workers are now the mothers from the area, and while we may be there for a while yet, we can have a very clear exit plan. The community centre, our main community centre, now sees roughly 30,000 people a month in the area. These are just some of our success stories. It's the reason I'm there is for the children, not the programs. We have a very successful education program. We have very good relationships with the community leaders around the area. And to finish up, I'd like to take one example. This little girl was 11 years old, abandoned on the garbage dump, with her sister, living in appalling circumstances, very high risk. She's now one of our educators in the evening. She has her own class. She teaches every night, and there's our statistics as of the end of 2011. We retained 97% of the students. Every child passed. That was out of, back then, 700 students. Our absentee rate was just under 1%. The addendum to this is that there are still 10 to 15% of the children who are living in such difficult, dysfunctional circumstances that they cannot come to school. They either have to look after siblings, the parents want them to stay near home because things will get stolen, they're required to earn an income. And the most recent initiative is to start building these very, very basic schools right in the heartland of these slum areas. And we're doing it with the financing from Credit Suisse Bank. We've opened 3 of the schools, and they're working very well, even with just having some running water. Mothers come in now, they bathe, they collect the water there. We have some rice, so we have the food program in the evenings. And it's with that sense of community, we're going to be at close to 100% attendance rate sometime by the end of this calendar year. So I came into it without a non-profit experience. It's been a wonderful lesson, and I'm still learning as I go. So make your questions easy, please.
Thank you. I heard you saying that for the parents who encourage their children to come to school every day, you give them rice. That's right. As a way of appreciating what they are doing. I was wondering how long will you have that rice for parents? Because don't you think there should be another way of making parents aware that there is a need to encourage their children to come to school?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. However, it ends up being more a case of the parents' individual situation, because if they're carrying a debt of, say, $300 or $400, they have to be paying back $1 to $1.50 every day to the lender, and that requires, on an average income of $2.50, most of the household to be working. So while we give the 10 kilos of rice for free, we also have to work closely with the families. We don't want to breed a sense of dependency, but the parents do need help. The one thing we're doing now is actually taking on the debt. We're refinancing bad loans. So as opposed to paying 10 or 15% per month, we're actually refinancing the loans so the parents have a greater degree of dependence. Yeah, I think conceptually there is something wrong with having to pay parents for their children to attend school. However, having lived there for 8 years now, you can see that it's not out of any selfish motivation. It's purely because they wouldn't be able to eat. And for each child we brought in from the family, there was one less revenue earner at home. So we bring in 2 children, the other siblings would go hungrier. And that was that understanding we embraced the family and community model more and more.
My name is Mehnaz. I'm from Pakistan. I think this was an exemplary case of your community learning center model where you didn't have any predefined programs, and they were developed with the passage of time through the identification with complete community participation. What exactly is your status or your future plans in terms of sustainability of this?
Yeah, I mean, it's really I like to call it sort of organic growth and reactive. It was actually, I didn't have any vision, and I was taking it day by day. I was down there every day of my life. In sustainability, there's one thing I'm very adamant about. I don't believe in the concept of scaling up, because we've had a number of major funding entities come and look at our program, and there's this, there seems to be a habit to take a good idea that works and try and make it apply to a national level. And I feel that at that point you're taking away people's sense of independence, sense of own responsibility. So we very much want this model to be replicated as opposed to expanded. And I come from private enterprise, but the model it's more of a franchise model than a nationalized model. And in terms of sustainability, the costs will come down because the cost of the salaries for teachers, daycare workers will start to fall. The satellite schools are on a kind of a unique funding program. We have child sponsorships, one-on-one with the child and a person in, most often, US, Australia, or England. We have a very high-priced child sponsorship program, $1,200 to $1,500 a year. And quite frankly, we cannot keep up with the number of people wanting to engage. So with each new school we open, we break even at 35 students. We cover all of our community and operating costs at 65 students, and each of the schools is averaging about 120 students a year. So that funding becomes self-sustaining to a degree.